Is solar so great? Why isn't it everywhere? Every once in a while, I get someone who's bold enough to challenge me with this idea that if solar's so great, why don't I see it on every roof? Why isn't everybody doing this? I had one business owner who was savvy enough to push back and say, Joel, if everything you're telling me is true, everybody be doing it. Well, I agree. And in fact, I think everybody is starting to do it. It's just coming a little slower than people thought. And, we really have to work for what we do. And I want to tell you why I think it's been a little bit slow to adopt, because it really has nothing to do with solar or batteries. They're fantastic. They are awesome. It's just that there's a few things that have made it too expensive for some people. And there are some folks out there that really don't want to see it be successful because their business model makes money off something else. So let's take a look and try and understand, why isn't solar everywhere if it's so great? And it is great. Trust me, I love solar. It's fantastic. And batteries are the up and coming. These two together are going to be an absolute powerhouse. But let's take a look at what might slow it down. One reason, in particular in Montana, is we don't see the air pollution. Solar has a fantastic effect on air pollution because there isn't any. If you produce power without air pollution, then you've improved people's lives. And the Harvard 6 Cities study proved that and showed a direct correlation between particulate matter and respiratory and heart conditions. It's clearly documented that smog kills people early, and it causes a whole bunch of health issues. There's dollar amounts out there that are associated with it. But in Montana, a lot of times we have clean air. Now, sometimes of the year we have these horrible wildfires and the smoke is terrible. I just can't stand it. It's one of the hardest things to deal with. But in places like Delhi, they have some of the worst smog in the world. And it's literally killing those people. People who live near refineries like Salt Lake City or even in LA, some of those areas deal with these terrible air quality issues. And you know what? Solar solves that. So in some cases, we say, why does it matter how much it costs? If it fixes those kind of issues, then we're going to do it. So let's figure out why we don't have solar everywhere, because we could. It's been shown to work. Solar works really well. And with batteries coming in here hot, their prices are coming down and their features are improving a ton. Why isn't it everywhere? I should see this stuff everywhere. Every house, every roof, every commercial building, every government building should have solar on it. Every single one. And inside of all of those, we should have batteries in the garage or in the shop to help us smooth out the grid and take care of us during outages. So reason number one why solar adoption has been slowed a little bit, it's because the grid itself, it wasn't ever designed for solar. The grid itself is a one-way street. You've got power generation some way over there burning coal, and they send power one direction, distribute it, and it goes out into houses and businesses. It's one way. It was centralized. It's top down. For everybody who loves those kind of terms, you can buy solar just to push back, just to be an individual and claim your independence. Because when you hear, the grid was designed to control everybody, ooh, that just doesn't settle well with people in Montana. We hate hearing stuff like that. Let's get out our guns and, whack the streets because we're independent. We love to be independent. We take pride in that. And solar and batteries helps us be independent. So people who run the grid and are used to the grid being one-way street, now we're pushing back a little bit, and the power flow is the opposite direction, which can be a little confusing sometimes for people. And even seasoned electricians get a little confused by which way is the power going? Normally it goes that way, and now it's going that way. Is that okay? Yeah, it's fine. It works just fine either way, no problem. So solar's really flipped the script on the idea of this one-way grid, and now we use the term distributed energy resource, or DER, to mean solar panels are out distributed, right? They're all over the place, and there's this interaction between the power grid. So sometimes the old grid, the old grid can cause interconnection delays. They're not staffed. They don't have the resources to understand interconnection, which is this magical point between distributed energy and the grid. It's not magic. It's just where the wires touch. Here's our solar system out here, and here's the grid over here, and we come together, and boom, they touch. Okay, that's interconnection. Sometimes they put caps on your systems. We have a utility here that's not very far away that limits the size of the system, and it deters people from getting solar because they're going to limit them to a 20 kilowatt system. And this person's got an $800 a month electric bill, and they need maybe a 25 or a 30 kilowatt system for offset, and they can only get 20. Can't reach 100% offset. Something people really like, the idea of 100% offset. They don't like to have much less than that. The old grid or the grid itself can have some outdated rules, and that they treat solar like this kind of side project. Instead, it's going to be the main project here real soon. It will be the focus of electrical generation in the next 10 years, which is going to be super fun. And so the grid, sometimes they kind of drag their feet, make up some rules and slow us down. I love a lot of these utilities. They're fantastic. Our utility here is wonderful. We have like the best utility in the world. So not ripping on those guys by any means, but they're not designed, and it's not in their best interest to have everybody with solar panels. It's their job to sell electricity. And when you generate your own solar, you don't need as much power, which means you don't spend as much money with the utility. All right, reason number 2 why solar isn't everywhere, on every roof, all over the world, which it will be, because I'm going to put it there. Financing's been a little tough for solar. Today, it's great. A lot of solar programs now. There's been a great benefit, big tailwind for the industry is a lot of financing options, but it hasn't always been that way. And sometimes that would detract people. And people who have gotten quotes maybe 10 or 15 years or 20 years ago, a long time ago, a lot of times they're like, can I get financing for this? And we're like, absolutely. We got like 5 people who do financing. We got a bank, and we got a fintech, and we got these other people that'll finance it too. So that's been great in that solar systems are bankable, meaning that, they're legit, and these banks can finance them because they understand they're worth it. So I always tell people that's one big signal that the industry is maturing, is that the financing is widely available and easy to get. So that's one great thing. But in the past, it hasn't been the case. And some loans were hard to get, especially longer term loans. Now we can do 25-year, 30-year loans, which help bring down that price. But do watch out for those dealer fees. Do not pay dealer fees. Go to a community bank, or go to someone who's got real low closing fees, because those dealer fees, man, they can eat up that return on investment. They can lengthen the payback period. It can give you some real heartburn down the road because you paid a bunch of extra money for just the financing. It doesn't pay for the system. Now, some people have huge electric rates and tons of sun, which is California a lot of times. Some of those dealer fees don't matter as much. But in Montana, we got low electricity rates and fairly low irradiance. Every penny counts, right? And I've cut my teeth on making every penny count, because the return on investment changes. The based on how much you're charged in relationship to the production. So system costs a lot for not very much production. That's not a good deal. Okay, we get a ton of production for not a whole lot of money. That's a good deal, right? So I've had to cut my teeth and build my business on good deals. So we have large systems in Montana because we don't have a lot of sun, or as much sun in this area, and we've got fairly low electricity rates. So we've got two things that make it a little more challenging, but we do it. We still do it, right? We still install systems, and they still make sense. So reason number 3 why we don't see solar everywhere, which we will at some point. I think I'll be able to do it. There was some sales culture out there when they were slinging solars, some fraud. I still see comments about that online. There's fraud, or it's just a scam. Solar's not legit. This has all been cooked up, and it's too bad that there is some of those dark areas of the industry. And I do everything I can to make sure that we never look like that or sound like that, because that's just terrible. I do know that sometimes we'll call aggressively. Solar companies will call a lot, leave a lot of messages, and so that's not exactly fun. My big focus is to be a local company. Be legit. See people out about. Understand who people are, gain their trust, and then we can have a meaningful business relationship. But that hasn't always been the case. And nationwide, there are sales organizations which their only job is to sell solar. They don't install it themselves. And so they can kind of sell whatever they want, because then it's handed off to some other company to install. But that's when a company sells it and installs it themselves, you got to deal with what you sell. And so a lot of times that some of those overinflated prices or high commissions or whatever it does to get those bad, quote unquote, bad deals goes away. So reason number 4 why solar isn't everywhere, and batteries too. Utilities don't love losing control. And I have a couple other videos on this, and I talk about this quite a bit, is that utilities don't hate solar. No, they don't. They love power, and the demands for power are going up, and our local utilities growing a ton, and they have somewhat limited power. We have long transmission lines here from the Bonneville Power Administration. And so, no, they don't hate solar at all, but they can't control it. And they deal with a fluctuating demand resource from their customers, and they need to adapt and pull the levers and pull the strings and make sure we don't have outages or things like that. Well, with solar, they can't. They don't have control over it. They don't have levers to pull. They just have to absorb it at a small amount. When solar's a really small amount of the overall picture, they don't really care. Yeah, it's okay. We got a little bit of solar, but as the solar becomes a larger and larger portion of that customer base and the overall power distribution, utilities start to care. Yep, they start to notice, and they don't want to lose control, because right now they're in control of the grid with their primary mission for safety and reliability and consistency. And so utilities are charged with this task to consistently provide power, right? This is a tough job when there's a lot of variability. And so they want to limit the number of variables so that they can control the situation. And no doubt that they do a great job, and they want to do a great job. But if we start building a bunch of solar systems and we're backfeeding the grid, we're creating more variability, which makes it harder to manage, which most people don't like that. So sometimes solar can flip the tables, and now you're in control of your own power. And you're the one who gets to flip the knobs, right? Who's in charge now? People love that. Not that we're trying to throw it in the utilities face, but they were built for a different environment, and now we're going to see more and more solar because a lot of these reasons are going away. They're not that big of a deal, but I like to talk through them. Reason number 5, I think I talked about this. Climate's not obvious here in Montana. Beautiful pollution-free skies. Idaho, we got clear air. Washington's beautiful state, right? People aren't necessarily smoking on. People aren't choking on smog. The particulate matter 2.5 is actually a really interesting topic. And Mexico City struggles with a really high concentration of this really tiny particulate matter that goes down into our lungs and actually penetrates right through the lungs into the bloodstream. And this is the direct result of burning fossil fuels. This is a serious issue. And this has been backed up with study after study. This is legit because they took 2 cities, one that's super polluted, one that's not polluted, and they compared the medical records and medical activities between those 2 cities. And they studied it really closely. Legit, right? It's a Harvard study that went through it, and they proved that burning fossil fuels harms people's health. Big surprise, right? But they actually have data that shows it. And what they found is this really tiny particulate matter that only comes from burning fossil fuels. So if you live right next to a place that burns a bunch of fossil fuels and you're breathing it in all the time, you're going to die early or you're going to have medical problems, right? A lot of times it's heart attack, stroke, and upper respiratory. I'm going to do a video on that alone because I find it so interesting. And it's one of my big discussions around the value of solar. Goes way beyond just the electricity it produces, right? Solar produces electricity. It's very valuable. The utility they put a number on it because they're the ones that are sort of setting that fair market value. But I like to talk that solar is worth way more than the net metering dollar amount. It's worth way more because of the health effects, because of the way it interacts with society. Solar panels are so much better. They don't produce any smog, right? Now at the mine, I get it, where it's mined, where it's built, the manufacturing, I can talk about that. I can agree with that, but that's gone pretty fast. I think it's 2 years, maybe 2 years later that basically nets itself out. And then solar panels can last 25 years. That's one of my favorite. 30 years, maybe even 50 years. Okay. All right. Reason number 6. Okay. Batteries took too long to get here. Okay. Well, batteries would have been great a long time ago. It took too long. I'm just joking. Solar alone by itself is great. Solar and batteries are amazing. These two are absolutely unstoppable. These two just love each other. Solar loves batteries. Batteries love solar. They're like a little perfect couple. But one of the reasons why this hasn't taken off and why we still see some issues is the batteries are expensive. Okay, you spend $12,000 on a Powerwall. Right? It's still expensive. That cost got to come down. Let's bring it down, down, so everyone can have them. I'm well aware that we need to bring the cost down, and I'm fighting to bring those costs down, working really hard at it. It's one of my number 1 goals is to bring down the cost of solar so that everyone can get access to it. It is because we need to find a way to put it on every roof and put a battery in every garage. But it's taken a while because batteries are expensive. But you want to know the great part is electric vehicles are taking off. And what drives electric vehicles? Batteries. Well, it turns out some of those batteries that get made for electric vehicles, which are a really high quality, great battery, get put in energy storage. And so the energy storage market is benefiting from EVs because some of that battery production will be used in energy storage. So we got battery plants getting built all over the U.S. I know Trump's trying to slow that down, but they will be built. But let's think outside the US. We see battery plants going in all over the place. China has been killing it for years, and now we're starting to see them in Europe as well. A lot of the technology from China is overflowing into other countries. New plants are being built. We're going to have tons of battery capacity. And with the high-end premium batteries like solid state pushing into that premium market, the technology we're used to today are going to become more affordable. So lithium iron phosphate, even nickel, manganese, cobalt, or NMC, and the sleeper is sodium, right? Those are all going to push down lower, become cheaper, and those future cost trends are just down. We're going down the learning curve. They will be cheaper in the future than they are today. Reason number 7, installation's too slow and too custom. You know what? I can kind of agree with that because every single one of my jobs is unique. So we have to custom design the solar panels, not the panels, the array, how it's designed, and then we build it custom. And then it's a custom route down to the ground, and we have to plan or engineer a custom integration. So some houses are easy. Some houses are really, really hard. And that variability is difficult when we're trying to run a business, right? We like things to be nice and consistent, the same, but they're not. So it's fine. We just learn to deal with it. And that takes some new technology in racking and in interconnection, because that's the variability where it gets connected. These new meter sockets are awesome. Tesla, Enphase, and Connect ER is a meter socket solution, they're going to be great, but utilities don't want to approve them yet. So these installations used to have a lot of individual components. Putting them together was difficult. So Tesla's done a great job because they took their inverter and put it in the battery. Okay, let's take these two things and combine them into one. Elon's great philosophy is eliminate the part, eliminate the process. And, they're living that every day. And we see it in their product. One of the ways is Powerwall 3 has the inverter in the battery, which means we have to install one less thing, which means we can do the job faster, which means we can charge less, which means more people can get solar, right? So this downward pressure on costs includes this variability in installation. So when we have to do inverters separate from the battery with all this other wiring, it's fine. We do it all the time. It's great, but it takes longer, which means it costs more, which means we need more skilled labor to do it. So let's knock down that variability and address some of it with digital twins, virtual site surveys, 3D scanning, all sorts of cool stuff in order to bring down that variability. So solar adoption is coming. We want it to be on every roof. But I had to laugh because that customer challenged me. And it's funny because he looked around. If solar's so great, Joel, how come we don't see it everywhere? He's just a great, great guy. I loved it. And I just had to go, yeah, you're right. It's coming because it's great. And it reduces air pollution. We're in Montana, right? Doesn't smell too bad here. Although there are some places in Montana that do have pollution. We do have some industrial cities, but those are all just some reasons that are slowing down solar a little bit, and they're just slowly getting tamped down, right? The utilities are changing. Some are for the better, some for the worse. But that can be an issue, and the variability in the install, right? The widely accepted technologies and tools are making things better. So my goal is to get solar installed on every roof, in every building, all across the world. Wow, that's big. And I'm a big believer in coupling batteries with those. So a battery and solar combo is really the future. And we're going to see it provide more value than just solar alone because of its ability to interact with the grid in a more favorable way, right? I've been alluding that utilities don't hate solar, but they can't control it, right? They love batteries because we can schedule them or dispatch them. and that's what they're used to. So the future is bright for solar, no pun intended, but there are some challenges along the way, and we have to work through those. One of them is making sure that everybody understands how it works so you can get a good deal, right? Don't get ripped off, and don't install something that you don't like, that doesn't look good. And that's totally subjective, one person to the next. But learn something. Watch a few videos on YouTube from Joel and learn how to repower your house and repower your life even by participating, because it takes everybody to participate in this renewable energy transition for it to be real. The more we buy as consumers, the more factories they build, the more they focus on making things better, the more we can all have clean, renewable energy